Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here today. It is Chris, and it is a great day that the Lord had made. We are here together, and I want to talk about a very important topic: self worth. It's one of those things that we all know we should have, yet many of us feel inadequate. Today, I want to take some time to talk about those doubts of self worth, and more importantly, how we can reclaim the way that we view ourselves, the way that we have worth inside of our heart. This is not just a theory. This is a proven uh, way of going about it. Uh, I am a product of finding my worth, changing my mindset, getting rid of my limiting beliefs, and by doing so, growing into a better man. I was not always the way that I am today. I have struggled through depression. There was a time in my life where I had a medical condition that took me out of the workforce for months and months on end. We had to live off of my wife's paycheck, which thank God we were able to do it. But as we went through it, there were multiple times throughout the day that I would sit and I would say, I'm not worth anything. I am worthless. That mindset was a downward spiral into a dark corridor. I continued to find myself digging a deeper hole of self doubt, putting limiting beliefs on myself, and finding that I am not worth anything is the way that I projected myself. I was projecting myself internally that way. I was doing it with my relationships, with my wife, with my kids, with my family. And I knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel. But as I was digging through that time, I felt worthless. I struggled with this. And there's many of us that struggle through depression, that struggle through finding that you have value. And I'm going to tell you, you do. Find it, okay? Let me take you back through another challenging moment in my life. When I was building my business, trying to support my family and keep everything together, but nothing seemed to be going the way that I planned. Everything, I would put it there and it would fall. I was juggling all these balls and it felt like I just kept dropping. No matter how hard I worked, the results just weren't there. I remember just sitting at my desk one night, looking at everything I've done, the bills, and just feeling crushed, feeling like a failure. And I thought, I can't get this right. What have I done? Am I really cut out for this? And that was the first big lesson of self worth that I want to share. It's incredibly easy to equate our worth with our circumstances. When things aren't going well, when our bank account is low or the business isn't thriving, that's easy to think. I'm not worth much. That's easy to think. But I've learned that our circumstances are just that, circumstances. They don't define us. They are temporary, but our worth is inherent. Think of those circumstances as a moment, a picture in time. It's going to fade. It took a long time to realize that my worth wasn't tied to my financial success or the success of my business. And I want you to ask yourself, what circumstances in my life have I been allowing to define my self worth? Ask yourself that. Maybe it's your job, your relationship status, or even how many followers you have on social media. These external factors are just the surface, they do not define your value. As I continued on my journey, another challenge emerged. criticism. Pardon the interruption, but amazing news. Right now on Amazon, you can purchase The Sales Mindset and Unleash Your Potential, written by yours truly, both available in English and in Spanish. Links are in the descriptions below. Now, let's talk about that for a moment. How many times have you been affected by someone's opinion of you? Maybe it was a comment from a friend or a family member or a stranger online or somebody walking down the street that made you feel less, made you feel not important. For me, that has happened more times than I'd like to admit. There are many people who have questioned my decisions, my capabilities, even my dreams. And each time this has happened, I felt a blow to my self esteem. It made me question myself. What if they're right? What if I'm not good enough? And that is a limiting belief that we've allowed to come into our mind. But there are things about criticism that most of the time it's not even true or about you. People project their own insecurities, fears, limiting beliefs on others. When I finally understood this, I started to separate myself from their opinions. I realized that my worth was not determined by someone else's perception of me. It's rooted on how I feel about myself. In the truth, I know who I am. I want you to reflect on what I just said. Reflect on this. How much power have you given to the opinions of others? How much time have you let someone else's words define your value? It's time to take back that power. It's time to recognize that no one can determine your worth other than you. You are in charge. Another major turning point was when I started to acknowledge my own inner critic. You know that the little voice that's in the back of your head and it tells you that you're not smart enough, you're not talented enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not worthy enough. Yeah, that voice can be brutal. For years, I allowed that small voice to control me. I allowed it to dictate how I feel about myself. And every time I faced a setback, that voice got louder. It became a small voice to a screaming, holding a blowhorn, yelling in my ear. But there wasn't a time that I looked within myself and said, that's all it is a voice. But here's what I've learned about that inner critic. It's not telling the truth. It's a manifestation of our fears, our doubts, the stories that we have told ourselves. I had to learn to challenge this voice. The question is validity. Whenever I caught myself thinking, I'm not good enough, I asked, says who? Based on what? And more often than not, I'd realized that there was no real evidence to support that limiting belief. I was putting it on myself. One technique that has helped me quit and just quiet that inner critic was replacing the negative self talk with affirmations. Now, I know some people might be rolling their eyes at the idea of affirmations, but hear me out for a second. When I started consistently reminding myself of my strengths, my accomplishments, and my unique qualities, something shifted. It wasn't an overnight change, but gradually. I began to see myself in a different light. I started to believe that I was capable and I deserved more. I grew a worth within myself. Affirmations are not just sitting there and repeating a mantra over and over and over. It's looking at the other side of the coin, flipping that voice that's in your head that's saying you're not good enough and changing it, saying, I am good enough. I am strong enough. And here is why. Not just of what you read in a book, but truly changing your mindset. If you're struggling with your own inner critic, I encourage you to try this. Try this. Write down the negative thoughts that you have about yourself and then challenge challenge them. Replace them with positive, affirming statements about who you truly are. It might feel awkward at first, but over time, you'll start to uh, look at it and build new beliefs. You'll start changing your mindset over time, little by little, by challenging that inner voice. Another big part of my journey was learning to appreciate my journey. So often we compare ourselves to others, thinking that we should be further along, more successful, more accomplished. But the truth is, everyone's journey is different. When I stopped comparing my progress to others and started focusing on my own path, I found a sense of peace and fulfillment that I've never experienced before. When you look at you are where you should be, you are where you need to be at that moment. And that's what is so important. Your story is different than anyone else's story. I realized that every challenge I faced, every setback, and even every failure that I lost was a lesson, a stepping stone that brought me closer to my true potential. And that's something that I want you to remember. Your journey is yours. It's not your parents, it's not your friends, it's not even your past. It's yours. Who you are at that moment, that is your journey for you. Don't let comparison steal your joy or make you doubt your worth. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and recognize that every step forward is a step in the right direction. And lastly, gratitude. Gratitude is extremely important. When I started practicing gratitude, everything changed. I began to focus on what I'd, I want rather than what I didn't have. I started to appreciate the little things, the supportive people in my life, the opportunities that came my way, and even the lessons I learned from my mistakes. Gratitude helped me see that I am enough just the way that I am, and that my worth is not based on what I achieve, but on who I am as a person. It's not based upon my job, my bank account, the car, the clothes, even my family. It's based upon who I am. So if you're struggling with self-worth, I want you, I, I want to leave you with this. You are more than your circumstances. You are more than the opinions of others. You are more than that inner critic in your mind. Your worth is so much more. It's something that you were born with. And no matter what challenges you face, remember that you have the power to redefine, change, evolve your story. Henry Ford said that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are correct. Take a moment today to reflect on what makes you unique, what makes you valuable, and what makes you worthy. And when the doubts start to creep in, because they will, remind yourself of the truth that you are worthy just as you are. Napoleon Hill wrote a great book back in the 1930s called Think and Grow Rich, one of the top selling books in the world. And this book taught that our mindset determines our reality. Your mindset, the way that you view your worth, determines where you're at in life. Fix your mindset, change, grow, get out of that dark place. You are worthy. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope my journey has resonated with you in some way. If you're struggling with self-worth, know that you're not alone. You have the strength to overcome anything. Your journey is not over, and your story is still being written. Embrace it, own it. Never forget your worth. Hope you all have a blessed day. If you like this video, you like this podcast, share, ring the bell so that you know when new ones are coming on, subscribe, and have a blessed one.